Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So, really quick, if you haven't seen my most recent episode on this lovely looking creature, make sure you check it out at some point. This is one of the new alternative commanders from the Precons coming up, and it is a really exciting new Rakdos commander that can do some really cool things. That being said, don't leave me just yet, because we've got yet another really exciting alternative commander from the Gruul Precon, this time with this lovely dragon. So currently we don't have the official English translation for these cards, but I have used what I have found online for the translations, and I made my own custom card. So although the translation might not be perfect, it is probably incredibly close in basically what this commander does. The only thing that I will mention though is that the name is probably not correct, because I actually, just put that name in there because again, the name isn't currently translated. But if Trogdor the Burninator was this commander's actual name, that would be pretty sweet, though it's highly unlikely. Regardless, for this episode's purposes, its name is Trogdor, so let's talk about this commander. Trogdor the Burninate is a 4/4 dragon with flying and haste that costs 5 red-green. It has whenever Trogdor attacks, add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the total power of attacking creatures. This mana may only be used to cast spells. Until end of turn, this mana isn't lost as steps or phases end. So yeah, that is an incredibly powerful effect. And actually, the first comparable commander that came to my mind was Grand Warlord Radha, who essentially does this, but it's more of a go wide strategy versus a go tall strategy. Grand Warlord Radha cares about the number of creatures that you have attacking, but Trogdor cares about the total power of all your creatures. So yeah, once you've got some big creatures in play, the amount of potential mana this can generate you is absolutely absurd. And of course, you can utilize that mana until the end of the turn, and yeah, it gives you perfect mana fixing. Now, one notable difference between this and Radha is that you are limited to what you can do with that mana. Again, it says this mana can only be used to cast spells. Now, most of the time when you're utilizing mana on things, that's going to be spells anyways, but yeah, you can't activate abilities with this or use it for essentially anything else. So, no aggravated assault combos, but that's probably okay. Regardless, although there is that restriction, in my opinion already, this commander has a lot more potential than, say, Grand Warlord Radha. Because again, the amount of mana that can generate you can be absolutely absurd when you get some powerful creatures on the field. And then that mana that you generate can be used to cast even more powerful creatures, which can then give you even more mana, and you see where this is going. To start off, I would definitely be including some creatures that have a high power potential and not too large of an investment. For example, Malignance is a star elemental spirit that costs 3 red. Its power and toughness are each equal to half the highest life total among your opponents, rounded up. And on top of that, damage that be dealt by Malignance can't be prevented. So again, with the assumption that you've got one opponent at say 40 life, this is going to be a 20/20 for 5 mana. So yeah, just by getting Trogdor out and then attacking with it and Malignance, that's going to be 24 total mana that you have until the end of the turn. So yeah, things can certainly get out of hand really quickly in this kind of a deck. Because yeah, again, you can utilize all that mana for a lot of other things. I mean, 24 mana is quite a bit that early on in the game. So yeah, you can just dedicate 6 of that mana to another variable power creature like Beast of Burden. Beast of Burden is a star golem that costs 6, and its power and toughness are each equal to the total number of creatures in play. So yeah, whether that's your opponent's creatures or your creatures, it's counting everything. So this can very easily get up to 10 plus power really quickly, and again, that's just basically 10 free mana on an attack. And of course, if you've got some cards that make you a bunch of tokens, that can make it even higher, even quicker. Another type of card though that you're definitely going to want to consider for this deck though are extra combat spells like Relentless Assault. Relentless Assault is a sorcery that costs 2 red and says untap all creatures that attack this turn after this main phase, their additional combat phase, followed by additional main phase. Basically, you get an extra combat. So again, by doing that, you essentially double up not only your damage that you're dishing out with your creatures, but you're also doubling up essentially all the mana that you just generated. So basically, whatever the total power of all the creatures that you have on the field, now you're getting double that. And then maybe you've got a spell that can draw you more cards, that draws you into another extra combat spell, and then you cast that. And yeah, it's going to be really hard to stop this ball once it gets rolling. You can just chain from extra combat spell into extra combat spell into extra combat spell, and eventually your opponents are going to be very, very, very dead. But if you don't have an extra combat spell, you might want to consider dumping a ton of mana, maybe all of your mana, into something like Endless One. Endless One is a very simple creature. It's a 0/0 eldrazi for X that enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So again, with that 24 mana, you could just dump that all into this and have a 24/24. And then next turn when you can attack with it, congratulations, you got an extra 24 mana because you just basically doubled up the total power on the field. So then you've got 48 mana, which you might want to spend on another X spell like Lifebloodhydra. Lifebloodhydra is a 0/0 Hydra trample that costs X green. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and when it dies, you gain life and draw cards equal to its power. So obviously there are plenty of X creatures out there, and utilizing ones that give you a little extra value outside of just being a giant creature is going to be important. Because even if your opponent kills this before you can actually attack with it, well, you're getting an absurd amount of value. I mean, again, say that you dumped 24 mana into this in total, so that'd be 21 for the X. I'm not going to complain about drawing 21 cards and gaining 21 life. Now, would I have rather attacked first and gotten some extra mana? Absolutely, but yeah, 21 cards and 21 life will do just fine. But actually, another card that you might want to think about dumping a ton of mana into is something like Gelatinous Genesis. It's a sorcery for XX and a green, and it says create XXX green ooze creature tokens. So the amount of power potential from this card is insane. Again, let's just go with that example of having 24 mana, though in this case we can actually only spend 23 because again, that double X value, so yeah, let's go with that. So at 23 mana, each of our X's is 11. So again, that's going to be 11 green ooze creature tokens. So in total, that's going to be 121 total power. We essentially just invested 21 mana to get 121 back next turn and then throughout the game. So yeah, it's going to be well worth utilizing a fantastic card like this one. Now, another card that you might want to consider is something like Animus Awakening. It's a sorcery for X and a green, and it says reveal the top X cards of your library, put all land cards from among them onto the battlefield, tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. On top of that, it's got spell mastery, so if there are 2 or more instant and/or sorcery cards in your graveyard, untap those lands. So basically, dump a ton of mana into this and get a lot of lands off the top of your library, and again, if you've got spell mastery, they're coming into play untapped. So we can essentially invest temporary mana advantage for permanent ramp. And again, with our potential for an absurd amount of temporary mana advantage, we can really put a lot of mana into that X and potentially just get, pretty much every single land from our library into play. So then obviously we permanently have access to a ton of mana, and on top of that, well, we're not getting any more dead draws from our lands. And speaking of draws, let's talk about Commune with Lava, which is a fantastic temporary card advantage spell. It's an instant for X, red, and it says exile the top X cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. So again, a card like this can give us a ton of options on our next turn if we just dump all of our mana into that X. Again, just think about building your deck with a lot of extra combat spells. Well, getting access to a lot of them in one turn can easily help us finish out the game, or at least just add an absurd amount of mana into our mana pool that we can then utilize to, well, finish out the game. Because even if we don't take our opponents out in combat, we can easily take them out with a massive burn spell like Comet Storm. It's an instant for X, red, and it's got multi-kicker 1, so we can pay an additional 1 any number of times as we cast this spell. It says choose any target, then choose another target for each time this spell was kicked. Comet Storm deals X damage to each of them. So yeah, with enough mana, obviously we can just go to our opponent's faces and take them out from there, or we can just decimate their armies and still go to their faces for a good amount of damage. And of course, this is just one of the fantastic X burn spells that are out there, and there are plenty that you can pick from. One more card that I definitely want to bring up, though, is the very fantastic Horizon Stone. It's an artifact for 5 that says if you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes colorless instead. Essentially, this is a way for us to store our mana instead of actually losing it. Now, I know our commander doesn't make us lose it as steps and phases end until the end of the turn, but after that turn, well, we lose it if we're not using it. So this allows us to save up our mana and fully utilize it whenever we need to. So even if we can't kill our opponents with a Comet Storm on one attack, maybe it just takes 2 attacks, so we just build up that mana over those 2 turns, and then voila, our opponents are, well, burned to the ground because of Comet Storm. So yeah, I think that this commander, Trogdor the Burninator, which again is not technically its name, but I would really like it to be, has a lot of potential. So of course I'm excited to see how others are going to build around it, and excited to see all the really cool cards that interact with it, and of course I'm also excited to see what its real name is, though again I'm probably just going to be disappointed because it's not Trogdor the Burninate. And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.